Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Experience Kills. I'm your host Ben and joining me today is Leah.
Greetings.
So this one is interesting that I want to talk to you about today, Leah. Basically I've been playing a little game here on PC and I think it's on console as well, and it's quite a major release. I think it's even got a physical release, which is quite rare for a game like this. And it's a game called FORECLOSED, all in capitals, all very serious, FORECLOSED. And this is by, I should say, Antab Studio, which is a very small, like, 2 people mostly led studio. I think it's a bit bigger than that, but the 2 creative leads, based in Italy, and published by Merge Games. And FORECLOSED is a cyberpunk sort of comic book come to life game.
So it's not about losing houses then?
No, worse than that. So the house isn't getting foreclosed. Your brain is.
Oh.
So that
sucks. Took a turn.
Yeah, so basically the game starts with the bank foreclosing your mind. Because it's like all your implants, all your kind of like who you are, your consciousness, they own you. And you just basically, and it all starts with you kind of like discovering the company you work for has been foreclosed as well and gone under, and therefore your brain is going to be the property of the banks. And you then start on your campaign, your mission to try and find out what the hell's going on, and what you're going to be able to do about that. And I think the most striking thing about FORECLOSED is the comic book styling, this kind of cel-shaded, very kind of stark, but lots of like stark lines but pastel colors, and it gives it quite a unique look. And you know, it's a third-person action-adventure game, and there's stealth elements in there as well. But basically, you're on a mission to find out, you know, what's going on, and then get to the court to try and stop this foreclosure of who you are, so that you can continue to be an individual and not just be like, shut down, basically, but be a part of the bank entity. So very cyberpunk, very kind of harsh future take on things. Yeah,
it's stressful. Blimey.
It is pretty stressful. So, you know, you're the thing that I think is worth remembering here when we're dealing with this comic book styling is that a lot of this game, the focus of it is around the characters, around the narrative. I don't want to spoil that too much, but your character has abilities. I don't want to spoil too much, and you find out that there's much more going on, and that, you know, you have something in your head that's very valuable, very experimental, and this means that you're going to be able to do stuff regarding, you know, gunplay and cyber things that is not of the norm, and that you are actually pretty special, and that's kind of cool. And that sort of unravels pretty quickly as the game progresses. And like I said, there's shooting elements, there's stealth elements. I don't know how to put it, but they're all very unremarkable. Like, the gunplay is fine, the stealth is fine, they both work. However, at no point did I ever get excited by either.
It sounds very dark and gritty, but you said it had a pastel colour tone to it, which actually sounds quite intriguing.
Yeah, it's got lots of oranges and pinks and neons and blues and stuff, and it conveys the sort of cyberpunk setting in a way I hadn't seen before. Obviously, I've played a lot of Cyberpunk 2077. I'm a big fan of The Matrix. I love the genre in general. You know, Neil Gibson and stuff, amazing. Snow Crash, but this feels different again, which I really, do commend and appreciate, and I think is an impressive level of creativity from such a small team. But like I said, sadly, the gameplay, the moment to moment, is not the most thrilling. It's got a very sort of by the numbers shooting mechanic. Just feels very basic. You know, there's cover, you can stick behind it if you want. It's quite like pixel aimy, i.e., you know, I was playing on PC, so it was like a lot of like you die quite quickly, especially early on, so using the cover and just peeking around corners and just headshotting. And then there's upgrade mechanics for your gunplay, and then also for your other sort of cyber implants as well, which can add they add a little bit of spice to the encounters, but it doesn't really ever change anything up massively, so it does feel all very just okay. I mean, and that's fine because this is clearly, you know, a small studio, a B-tier game, a sort of a B-tier price point, which we're starting to see a bit more of now with the sort of resurgence of indie games and stuff. We're seeing these games coming out that aren't fully fledged, but are getting physical releases, are getting a big push, but are not necessarily hugely elaborate entities, and that's what this feels like. It's a good idea. It's got a lovely look to it. It's got some pretty good character stuff, pretty good voice acting and writing. However, the moment to moment, the gunplay and the stealth and stuff, stealth definitely falls on the more frustrating than fun side of things, but that's just me. Probably I just don't love stealth games, and the action feels fine, if not amazing. It's pretty cool though.
So I was going to ask, how is the writing and the dialogue? Is it like darkly humorous, or is it quite straight?
Very straight. Very, very straight. But you do have choices in dialogue as well, which I always appreciate. You know, so it's not just straightforward cutscenes. You do get to shape your character a little bit, and sort of put things together. It's interesting because it's one of those situations where obviously this is not a British developer or you know, an American developer, but there is obviously the voice acting is fully English. The writing does sometimes feel a bit stilted and a bit like, you know, it has gone through translation. But it's not terrible. I've definitely played games with worse narrative and worse writing. I think there is, you know, the developer here is showing promise and creativity and originality as well. Like I said, the idea of the repossession of the brain, it's not 100% fresh. I've definitely seen those concepts in Cyberpunk previously, but it's not one of the ideas that gets used the most. So, you know, we've also seen like Cyberpunk games recently, like The Ascent, which are just using the setting to create visuals and stuff and aren't really playing with the concepts of Cyberpunk, whereas this definitely is delving into the deeper concepts and the idea of identity and self in a very digital situation. So I really like that. I really enjoyed that element of it, but sadly, you know, there's still a lot of gunplay that you kind of have to endure.
Yeah. Sounds intriguing though.
Yeah, I'd say so, definitely. You got any questions about it?
Is it kind of very much, oh yes, we're taking your brain away from you, or is it more menacing than that?
I think it's relatively menacing because the idea of, you know, that loss of identity and stuff, and it's obviously, it comes as a massive shock to the main character that he's gonna have to fight for this. There's this really interesting moment right at the opening of the game, I remember this, where you leave your house and, you know, you have to go to court, basically, is what you're told you have to do. And there's lots of, like, you're in a city and stuff, and it does feel a bit sparsely populated, but I'll let that go. But you're in this city, and there's lots of paths to go off and stuff, and you start walking down the direction, and you get this thing come up, and it's like, mental block, you are not allowed to go down here, you can only go in the direction towards your court appointment. And the idea that, I love the fact that, you know, the old gameplay mechanic of invisible wall, right, to prevent the illusion of space and areas to go into, even though really you can't. And the way they've got around that is by saying, actually, you are being mentally prohibited from doing this. We're physically stopping your body from going down this street because you have been told you have to appear at court. And I thought that was a really clever way of doing it, and at the same time hammering home that feeling of you're losing possession of your own mind.
I mean, do they go into the ethics of the situation at all?
Yeah, they do. I mean, through dialogue, there's a lot of discussion of, like, well, first of all, this thing that's in his brain has been put there without his knowledge, right? So there is a level of disposable of workers that aren't really worth anything. Again, a big cyberpunk concept that, you know, the serfs and the proles, they have very little, you know, sort of say in their own destiny in these dystopic universes, which is what cyberpunk almost always is. And that it's all corporate, and that basically you're not worth anything to anyone. So he's basically been experimented on against his own knowledge. So yes, there is definitely dialogue between characters around those concepts. Yeah.
Cool. Definitely sounds interesting.
Yeah, so that's FORECLOSED by Antab Studio and Merge Games. And I think that brings us to the end of another episode of Experience Kills. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please give us a like and subscribe to the channel as well. Why not? That is something we appreciate. Hit that bell icon so that you get harassed when we post a new video. Do give us a sub on Twitter as well. You can find us at Experience Kills. You can find me at DIYE, and Leah, smartly enough, foreclosed her Twitter escapades, because she's smart that way. I have to say, I appreciate that level of control over Twitter sphere, because it is just a hive of scum and villainy, and we should all learn from that. But yeah, we'll be back more with some Experience Kills videos soon, I'm sure. Please keep an eye on those YouTubes, and obviously these are available as podcasts as well, if you so wish to listen to them in audio only format. So until next time, I'm going to do everything I can to protect the sanctity of my own brain. What about you?
Yeah, I might have a nap. That will help.
Sure, I might do that. So have a good one, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.